Hello all and welcome back to my channel. Today I am doing a review of Boneyard, a 2024 film by Asif Akbar, and it runs for 1 hour and 36 minutes. So let's go ahead and check out the trailer.
Approximately 6 weeks ago, one of our concerned citizens came across human remains while walking a dog. We discovered the remains of 11 women and one unborn child.
We never faced anything like this. They're sending in an expert.
Chief Carter, I presume.
Hope you had a good flight, Agent Patrick.
I read your file. You've been looking for the boogeyman. Instead, focus on the regular guy just hiding in plain sight. We put serial killers into 4 categories. First, you got your visionary. They hear voices, you know. Next, we got hedonistic. These are lust killers. After that, the power control oriented. But I don't think our guy is any of those. He's a mission oriented killer. He thinks he's making the world a better place.
Hang on. You looking for a good time?
What do you say? You want to do this thing?
Oh, you know I do.
You telling me the serial killer can be an undercover cop?
So it could be anyone.
When I looked into his eyes were dead.
He's playing God. No one can get through life without pain. My pain is deep, but it gives me purpose.
We got a predator amongst us.
The papers gave him a name.
The bone collector.
So there you have the trailer. Such an exciting film. So the storyline goes, an FBI agent and the chief of police in Albuquerque are on the hunt for a serial killer known as the Bone Collector. This is a film based on true crime events about the Mesa Murders in New Mexico and the victims who were reported missing between 2001 and 2005, the ages ranging from 15 to 32. In total, 11 women and an unborn child were unearthed from the mass grave sites that came to be known as the Boneyard. The chief fears that the killer could actually be one of his own officers. The twists and turns will surely give you a rollercoaster ride of emotions as the story unravels and secrets are revealed. Will they find the perpetrator before he strikes again? So we enter the introduction scene with Agent Petrovic, who is played by the one and only Mel Gibson. And he's sitting on his bed looking at crime scene photos. Immediately, we get the sense that this case is haunting him. It also gives us an indication of his commitment and perhaps obsession, as we can see case files strewn across his apartment. So this gives us an insight into not only his frame of mind, but a bit of his personality too. His internal narrative helps to set up the story, with a quote saying, "The Bible says we should rejoice in our suffering. Suffering produces perseverance, perseverance, character, and character, hope. I'm still waiting to feel the joy in suffering." This is a poignant and profound inner monologue. At this stage, we have no idea who this man is and how he is involved in these cases. We know nothing of his backstory yet. As we enter the film, we are taken to West Mesa, New Mexico in 2009, where a woman is walking her dog and discovers human remains. So while the credits roll, and beautiful, ethereal, and eerie music plays. We see snapshots as the forensics teams is unearthing the remains, and the faces of the women they belong to flash across the screen. This is a grueling way to enter the movie, as we see skeletal remains with hair still attached. To say this looks authentic would be a huge understatement. I was gripped from the beginning, and the storyline is so confronting and realistic, it really draws the viewer in. And here we are also introduced to Chief Carter, who's played by Curtis 50 Cent Jackson, Detective Ortega, played by Brian Van Holt, and Detective Young, played by Nora Zetner, who are standing in the boneyard looking at the graves. So this raises a serious question: are they dealing with a serial killer? There is a dreadful undertone pushing the narrative, which enhances the scene in a remarkably horrifying way. Then we dive into another scene where we are introduced to Officer Tate, played by Michael Ciro, and Sergeant Graham, played by Vincent E. McDaniel, as the narcotics unit conduct a drug raid on a house. So Tate and Graham are in the drug house when the news comes over the TV from a press conference presented by Chief Carter about the Mesa Murders. I really enjoyed the way that this is delivered. The information and the revelations via media report is always an artistic way to present a scene. So enter FBI agent Pete Petrovic. What a brilliant introduction to his character, who is wearing a loud shirt, looks like he belongs on the beach, half drunk, and let's say I enjoyed this part of his characterization. It shows his disposition as he engages with detectives Ortega and Young, because soon enough we will see another side to him, more like the character we saw in the introduction scene. So I got the sense he might not be too comfortable around others. Perhaps he has spent too much time on the murder cases he is working on back home alone in his own bubble. And at this stage, the viewer is wanting to know his story, why he is so involved. And I'm glad to say we do find that out very shortly. So the Albuquerque team have brought Petrovic into the Mesa Murders investigation as a criminal profiler. I love the scene where he shows his skills about the nature of serial killers and their pattern of behavior. It's an interesting factual summary that adds layering and depth to the storyline. Agent Pete, as he likes to be called, does a decent profile analysis on the perpetrator. Does this throw the investigation into full swing, or does it send them all off into the wrong direction? We see an interview conducted with one of the witnesses. A potential suspect is identified, and it is not who they expected it to be. In fact, it is quite shocking, and it throws the case in the direction of one of their own. Nice dilemma taking place. Ortega approaches the chief about his thoughts of it being another cop. Is he on the right track? Now, we know most of the characters in their roles, the storyline solidifies. It ramps up as some very interesting events occur. So a horrid flashback scene shows us why Agent Pete is invested in his cases back at home and where he is trying to track down a serial killer. And I could be wrong, but I think he is investigating the Highway of Tears murder cases where Indigenous women used the 790 kilometre corridor, who had used this apparently 719 kilometre corridor of Highway 16 between Prince George and Prince Rupert in British Columbia. They used it to hitchhike between cities. So in the flashback scene, it happens to grip you into the story in a way that's quite chaotic, quite sad, as the imagery is dripping in very sad and sadness, and it evokes sorrow, I guess, within the viewer. And then we discover why Detective Ortega is actually invested in this case as well. And it plays out on the scene for us to see, which is good visuals to raise the intensity levels and to add texturing to the story arc. So the detectives and the chief begin to fear that like I said, one of their own could be the serial killer. So there is an intriguing play happening which keeps the tension heightened. Suspense is building nicely as we sit on the edge of our seats waiting to see how the mystery plays out. Detective Ortega seems to be on his own mission as he follows a lead that takes him down a dark path to find out what happened to his niece Selena. So he connects with one of the street prostitutes, Naomi, goes by the name of Candy, who eventually admits everything that happened the night Selena got into a car and never returned. She also reveals some information that prompts Ortega into action on a quest to find the truth. So this cements the prospect in his mind that a cop from the narcotics unit could be involved. But is he chasing his own tail? His partner, Detective Young, grows more suspicious of Ortega's behavior. We are introduced to one of the suspects, Cesar Monto, and who is actually the son of Nicolas Cage. Interesting fact. As he fantasizes over a young girl who walks into the shop. So the shopkeeper who knows Cesar is scared by his behavior. This takes the story into another direction. Candy makes a full statement to Ortega as she discusses what happened to some of the other girls. She calls her sisters. So we see a great flashback scene of the night Selena disappeared, which is good. And it would seem that Selena has her own secrets. So once again, the cop is pointed out as a possible suspect. So the interludes where we see someone drive up to the Boneyard where he buries the bodies of the women in graves is a good distraction, and it adds more vital flesh to the plot, as you will see. It does not take us out of the story. In fact, it enhances it. The chief has his own demons to face with his family. And I like that each main character has their own problematic background, deepening the storyline. Another flashback scene appears where we see an action scene as the SWAT team intercept a sex trafficking ring, and we discover the chief's reality that he can't overcome the fact he lost 2 members of his team that day. We are then introduced to FBI agent Womack as we learn the FBI have already been doing their own investigation on the dirty cop from the narcotics team in the background. During the briefing, some interesting developments come to light, which could possibly take the cop off the list of suspects. But are they moving in the right direction? So as the film progresses, more bodies are being dumped. But by whom? Is this in the past or in the present moment? Interesting play. We see a woman get into the suspect's car, yet again changing things up and twisting the storyline to confuse the viewer. Ortega, he visits Sergeant Graham about the dirty cop in the team, and the cop is called into the office. He rants on about his past and how he is a changed person. Ortega is not convinced at all. His target is the cop, and like a dog with a bone, he won't let it go. Although at first, this scene might feel random and out of place, however, its purpose is to throw the viewer off balance, and it worked well. Sergeant Graham is beyond anger when he catches up with the cop from his unit in the pub bathroom. This is another interesting turn of events. More of the story reveals Graham threatening the other cop's life, and I tend to believe him as he seems to be a seriously dangerous person that one wouldn't want to piss off. And why is Graham so viciously angry? Is he hiding secrets too? So a sequence of events soon takes place. Young betrays Ortega's trust by consulting with Graham. Then Graham does something he shouldn't, and in revenge, this causes Ortega to retaliate in his own way. So he seems to be going off track, losing the plot. His partner, Young, is growing even more suspicious of Ortega's behavior. She does something she probably shouldn't have. And as you can see, there is a lot to absorb, many pathways to keep the viewer fully invested in the film. We have an idea as to who it could be. One person, and the direction changes, and we are left wondering, who can we really trust when everyone seems to have an agenda of their own? Are the investigating personnel running around in circles? Sometimes it feels that way, much like a cat and mouse game, which has grown more dangerous as we progress towards the end of the film. By now, we are heavily invested in the characters, which is great. It is vital in a film that the viewer has to become invested in the characters. Otherwise, interest will be lost pretty fast. When it can provoke an emotional response, it means the film is heading in the right direction. So something happens that sends us spiraling back to Cesar Monto. As the shopkeeper is giving his statement, he admits to the scary interaction with Monto when he came into the store one evening. There is another flashback scene as the witness, Nella, replays what happened to her when she was in Cesar Monto's car, how he preached Bible verses to her. There's some great characterization happening as we see Monto hearing voices commanding him to do atrocious things. So although he may or may not have schizophrenic tendencies, is he really capable of murdering all of those women? We soon find out how he fits into the whole scenario. Fortunately, she is saved by who she calls her hero, and it is not who you think it would be. A not so pleasant surprise happens when the police discover the truth about Cesar Monto that had me sitting on the edge of my seat. As we near the ending, loose ties are connected, and there is a good number of resolutions occurring to wrap up the film. So Ortega is bewildered to learn that the dirty cop being the serial killer is a flimsy theory with little basis. Once again, here we are thrown 2 or 3 more possible suspects. Although the story has now become more complex with many working parts, I think the director and his technical writing team are able to make the storyline easy enough to comprehend the tension, the suspense, the mystery. The intensity levels have gained momentum, and the internal affairs office comes into the story in an unexpected way. Another gripping sequence of events occurs as all of their paths cross in a very interesting and intriguing way to satisfy those who like a bit of action to enhance the storyline. The chase is on. Has Ortega lost his mind? Another flashback tells a devastating reality of what happened to Selena. Sergeant Graham's life starts to unravel. At this stage, there are so many possible suspects, it's virtually impossible to know who the serial killer is. Are they back to square one? 10 minutes left to go, and no one knows who to trust. I like how we begin to see resolutions occur. So Petrovic, he admits to the senseless murder of his daughter Samantha. Ortega has to deliver the sad news to his sister about Selena. How we end this compelling film where we began. Petrovic alone, with a very profound narration that gave me the hella chills. It's a thought-provoking conclusion. There is a satisfying ending that didn't end the way I'd anticipated. The cliffhanger will probably have you left with a sense of wondering what the heck just happened. Looking back now, there were indications and some foreshadowing, but I did not envision an ending quite like this. So these are the elements I loved about Boneyard. Firstly, I commend Asif Akbar for delivering a deep and substantial, meaningful film that truly had me hooked from the start. And thank you very much, Asif Akbar, for sending me this film to review. The dialogue is authentic, believable, and strong. Nice tones coming through, feelings of dread, frustration, and hopelessness. There is no light, only darkness. The characterization is done in such a brilliant way. We have these people together in such a short time, yet the director and his team delivered their backstories in very interesting ways, like flashback scenes, graphic imagery, and internal monologue narration. Each main character has a backstory, history, issues to overcome, which is what I would expect to see in a thriller horror of this caliber. In such a short time, we clearly see development of their characters as they engage with the situations they are faced with. Mel Gibson and Curtis Jackson did remarkable performances. They should be commended, as I could clearly see they took their roles deadly seriously. The cinematography was very well done. I like the different viewpoints, some great angled shots, overhead shots, close-up shots, just fabulously done. In saying this, the editing is also very top notch. Great one, RJ Cooper, superb editing. The special effects are very authentic and believable. The blood looks real, thankfully not CGI blood. The shootout scene I had no issues with, especially since it looked very realistic. Music, it's very melancholy, airy, wonderful pieces that truly enhanced all of the scenes, and they are well thought out compositions that bring you up and drop you back down, especially the beginning piece as the credits open up. So revelations occur when it is needed. The plot is thick. There is nothing left hanging. Great resolutions, but still managing to hold onto some mysteries, which is appropriate given the fact this film is based on true events. Drama and conflict threaded nicely throughout the film. I think without the extraordinary descriptive characterization, the characters would have been wooden and baseless. This film did not disappoint. I am happy and satisfied with the ending as well, and I believe that in the medium of films, too many endings are predictable. Sometimes we're left with a massive cliffhanger that means nothing important for the viewer to take away. In this case, the cliffhanger has a purpose. It is intended that the viewer will feel the plight of the investigation team. And trust me, you will feel exactly how they must be feeling too. And that was an excellent way to end this powerful film. So, yeah, this film is available. It's streaming on Tubi, and you can also rent or hire it on YouTube. I suggest you go along and have a look. It's a really good one. I'm really glad that the director sent me this. He sent me it a couple of years ago, but I'm only really getting around to reviewing it now on my YouTube channel so that the film can get more views. The characters, the acting was just brilliant. Everyone was just played their roles with total commitment. So, yeah. Until next time. That has been my review, and like I said, it's only an hour and just about an hour and a half long. It's definitely worth it. I'd say go for it. I will also link where you can watch it in the description section of this review. And yeah, until next time. Stay safe out there, be kind, and bye for now.